Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. This is the one we've been waiting to see, honestly. So we're going to get the full breakdown of the changes to Hydra, the changes to champions specifically. They've put in their kind of like info here. Trunda specifically is called out. Shields are specifically called out. We're going to see some nerfs. People are going to be upset. Let's see if they've done it in a decent way that feels right, feels balanced. I'm going to try and stay kind of like, I'm going to try and take my emotions of my teams out and just think, for the health of the game, have they done the right thing? And then obviously you guys can have your opinion on how it feels to you directly in the comments down below. But yeah, it's going to be a full video here talking about Hydra, the changes, and then we can give our views. And I do have some other kind of like Q&A that they've given me as well, which I'll go into after the video in case there's some like frequently asked questions type of stuff. Just before I did put out a video yesterday about Godforge. It is coming along at a rate of knots. We're now working with Serena Bell. We've got insane new characters, including Merlin in the video, including some of the dragons, the Sphinx. Go and check it out. I'll link it down below. And you can still sign up to the beta, which is due to go out early next year. The sign up here is at fateless.gg. Again, I'll link that down below as well. We'd love to have more of you lovely people in the mix. Let's do this then. How bad is it?
Hey everyone, we've got a different kind of update preview for you today. We're showing off some balanced changes coming to the Hydra and a few other areas of the game. Along the way, we'll explain why we're making these changes, but here's a quick overview. The current meta is way too limiting to players who don't have specific champions in their collection. We want you to experiment with different tactics and teams, switching things up each week. Let's dive in and take a closer look at what's coming. First up, we're setting the turn limit at 1,000 turns.
Ooh, that's actually really good. Oh, it's still high in my opinion, but it's way better. Like, it just is going to save people a third of the time they spend on Hydra runs if you're in that later game place. You know, doing 3 runs, especially if people manual, 3 runs at 1,500 turns, which is what a lot of people do, by the way, at the end game, is long. It takes a hell of a long time. I am an auto player for Hydra generally, so it still runs, but I'm not actively playing it for that time. But I think a lot of people will really like this. And if anything, you know what? You could even bring it down to 500, honestly. You could, like, that. Yeah, anyway. This is a good change.
Auto-battling the Hydra can easily take over an hour. So we're aiming to cut down the time by at least half an hour.
It's very long.
You'll now need to build teams that do damage faster, rather than teams built for a war of attrition. With a few adjustments, you'll have no problem reaching the damage numbers needed to get your usual rewards. Moving on, we're changing how the Serpent's Will buff works. Most importantly, and brace yourselves folks, it now reduces damage by 100% for a newly grown Hydra head.
This is straight up what Saf threw out there as a suggestion, by the way. So when at the moment, there's enough champs in the game that just do colossal damage. And what people are finding they're able to do with great gear and endgame, like, this isn't for everyone, by the way, but great gear endgame, what's happening is the heads spawn and then they're blowing up the heads, even with the Serpent Will, before they're able to do anything. So it's like head killing simulator rather than trying to control the mechanics of Hydra, which obviously was never what they wanted Hydra to be, right? Let's be honest, that Hydra was meant to be this war of attrition that over time you're being eaten more and more. It's harder to free your champs more and more, and eventually everyone's eaten. That was the kind of like the vibe for what Hydra was meant to be. And it's the swing, because of power creep in the game, has meant it's become just destroying head simulator. It does mean, though, it's way harder. Like, that's way harder if you're doing 0 damage to the Serpent's Will heads. Interesting as well, yeah, okay.
Yep, you read that right. Complete damage reduction. You won't be able to nuke a newly grown head straight out of the gate anymore. Hold on, though. There's good news, too.
But that is a significant buff to the Hydra. Significant.
If two heads regrow at the same time, only one of them will get the Serpent's Will buff. Champions have gotten stronger since the Hydra initially reared its heads. What with Awakening, Empowerment, and mythical champions joining the fray. We were seeing Hydra heads nuked as soon as they rejoined the battle, even with the 75% damage reduction. So, to make the fight even, and bring back some of the challenge that's been lost due to the game's evolution, the Hydra is getting a little stronger too. We're also making changes to digestion and devouring.
I'll be honest, I don't hate that change actually. I think it's better for the health of like the Hydra clash stuff. I'm just thinking like, how does that affect a newer player? Newer players probably are just trying to get that initial, normal key done anyway. And I don't think it makes a lot of difference to that type of player. So this is more when you're getting into the people that will be affected most by this in a negative way. Everyone's going to get worse scores, don't get me wrong, but in a real negative way is where you're just trying to creep up from like, the normals into the brutals and stuff like that. And that's where you'll see a significant amount of damage lost.
You know how late on in the battle your champions start getting digested on a 2-turn countdown? Well, for every subsequent time they get digested after that first 2-turn countdown, the damage you'll need to do to free your champion increases. Like with Serpent's Will, digestion and devouring lost much of its...
Oh, that's hard actually. That's brutal. So, and it is when you get into the later phases of Hydra. So the more frequently you're being eaten, the more damage you've got to do to free your champ, and the time reduces as well. That's going to be significantly harder.
Its intended challenge over time as more powerful champions and features were introduced. It was always meant to be one of the Hydra's key mechanics and an ever-present threat. But it became really easy to rescue allies that were being digested. So, we're bringing that fear back into digestion. Taunts won't help anymore either. The Hydra has shed its thin skin, and petty insults will no longer distract it from a delicious champion meal sat right in front of it.
Okay, that's huge actually. So taunt no longer stops your champs being eaten. I don't think I love this. What's taunt for? What the hell is taunt for in this game? Like, it came in, it limped in because it didn't really have a function. It then got some presence because of Hydra, and people worked out that you could run very complex, hard to build teams, but have this infinite taunt going, which actually gave you this kind of like this ability to negate one of the mechanics. It's back to now, just like some people might use it in Phantom's Grove. Don't know. It just feels like I feel like you've just kicked the buff straight out the game again, really. Taunt for me is now completely useless again.
In short, once a champion receives the mark of the Hydra debuff, they become public enemy #1. And Taunt isn't going to do anything about it. Taunt is a cool mechanic, but new champion combinations emerged that could totally negate the mark of the Hydra. Less cool. It's not all bad news, though. Your team's AI will now prioritize attacking the head that is digesting when you're running in auto battle mode. Teamwork makes...
Hallelujah. We needed that. So AI is going to be improved to make sure, on auto at least, it's trying to free your...
The dream work. Exposed necks are also getting a rework. From now on, exposed necks will have a set HP value that is double the original head's HP. Once that value reaches 0, the head will immediately regrow. With constantly regrowing Hydra heads, you'll need to think on your feet and have tactics in place for all potential scenarios. Oh, man. Hydra battles are about to get much tougher.
Okay, this is way more than I was expecting, honestly. So they did say early on, like, it's a complex solution. And it looks like they've done, like, we've not even talked about champions really yet. We're just talking about mechanics so far. And we've got a few now significant changes to the mechanics of Hydra. You know, that change there with the exposed necks. You know, you're going to blow that neck up pretty damn quick because it's going to take more damage. I think they take 3 times the damage. And you're then going to be back to real heads real quick. And when they come back, they've got 100% damage reduction. So I think we're going to see scores generally, at least in the short term, dip a ton.
Tougher. But the changes don't stop there. We've got a few more lined up to help keep things balanced, starting with shields. Shields will now receive a cap of 1 million points. This cap is separate for shields placed by artifacts and shields placed by skills, though. So you could get up to 2 million points of shield. These caps are still big enough to ensure powerful builds remain viable for taking on the Demon Lord and the Hydra, but they'll not be as game-breaking as before. And
so let's just think about that then. So if you cap at 2 million, so capping at 1 million for a shield should mean that WIXWELL teams for Clan Boss are still good. I can't see that Clan Boss is going to hit through a 1 million shield or potentially a 2 million shield if you get both the divine shield and the normal shield buff, or like the shield buff from a set and then shield buff from a cast, you know. For Hydra though, let's think Yannica teams for a second. So Yannica does 15% of the damage of a shield that's ripped, so, or that's hit into. Let me just think here for some numbers. So if you've got a 1 million shield on 4 heads and it's 150k damage per head, it's basically like a 600k hit at cap. Now doubling to a 1.2 million hit at cap if you've got the double shields growing. So still potentially a strat. But I mean, right now, it's... No, hold on. Am I going crazy? Oh no, hold on. That's not a strat at all, right? Million, not billion. The strat's gone. The shield strat is completely gone, yeah. Okay, no, I'm going crazy. It's completely gone. Okay, I had to do a double take there, just check some math. I think Yannica, as far as I can work out, I think Yannica's totally dead now, which basically means WIXWELL is totally dead unless some other new fun way comes out for Hydra. Like for Clan Boss, he seems like he's still fine. For Hydra, I think WIXWELL, Yannica, EMIC, the Packmaster, totally dead as far as I can work out so far.
lastly, we come to everyone's favorite dwarven warrior herself, Trunda Guilt Mallet. Don't worry, we're not nerfing her into oblivion. We're just rebalancing some of her skills to keep her damage numbers in Hydra battles more reasonable. Starting with her default skill, Golden Mallet.
Oh, so they're totally changing her skills. Okay. Okay. Interesting. So it's just a complete champ change rather than they're trying to limit her damage on Hydra, which I guess is going to try and do the same thing.
Trunda will now have a 50% chance to place a stun debuff on both hits. A little upgrade, but a neat one for PvP. Trunda's second skill, Cloak of Ages, will now ignore 50% of each target's defense on her second hit.
Attacks an enemy, then attacks all other enemies with a second hit. That's the same, dealing 60% of the damage inflicted from the first hit and ignoring 50% of the target's defense. That's an upgrade. Ignoring defense is an upgrade from where it was before. Only the second hit of the skill will ignore defense. The second hit is always normal, right? This is where Trunda's straight up been broken. And I don't mean like, oh, she does high damage. I mean, this was never intended. And I mean, the devs have spoken about they were gonna fix this a couple of years ago. But there was community uproar then. I'm sure there'll be community uproar now. Basically, what they're doing is they're removing the crit part of the second hit. So the first hit is still going to be, by the sound of this, as strong as it ever was. No change. But the second hit will not then reapply crit multipliers a second time. That's where the craziness came from. Yeah, I was just checking the language here on what it says right now. So basically, what we found out over time, it doesn't say it specifically here, but the higher HP, lower defense of the first hit, the more damage you're going to do from the second hit because you're basically smashing through someone so hard. Like, so the harder you hit first time, the more damage you were doing second time. But basically what was happening is you were getting this kind of like over the top crazy crit multiplier, because it was crit multiplying twice. And now they've changed it so that the second part will always be normal. It's significantly less. So it might mean that she is completely out of the running for high-level Trunda teams. Or at least, I guess we'll get to playtest and see what it looks like, but it feels like that's a massive reduction of damage for Hydra, but it might actually end up being still kind of good for PvP, potentially, because of the ignore defense part of the second part of the hit. So it looks like that she's gone from PvP bot, best in the game, to #1 Hydra champion by so much it's insane, potentially going back towards PvP. Yeah, okay. I mean, look, I know people will be pissed at this, and all of the changes that's done to nerf champions they own, specifically the shield ones. I think, damn, you've literally binned it off into the ground rather than like made it worse. It's literally can't exist anymore from the numbers I'm looking at. This one though, I'm not totally against. Like, I think Trunda has been silly for a long time, and I'm not against it.
However, the caveat here is that it will only ever be a normal hit. It's still big damage, but it won't be quite as astronomical as they have been before. Forge Rhythm, Trunda's third skill, now places consistent HP burn debuffs, and both hits from this skill deal 50% more damage to enemies under a stone skin shield. Another neat boost to her overall.
Okay, again, total change to the third
Forge Rhythm,
skill.
Trunda's third.
So attacks all enemies, high chance of placing a stun, but you never want it to place a stun because you want the extra hits. So also places HP burn for 2 turns, places an extra hit on enemies not under stun, which is why you never want any accuracy. For like hard hitting, if you just wanted to be an HP burner with stuns, you go accuracy, by the way, and that's not a bad skill on its own, just so you know. But anyway, in terms of her being this kind of like damage bot, yeah, so both hits of this skill deal 50% more damage to stone skin now. So I was in this dev chat yesterday. I did a video about it with YST yesterday. I was in the dev chat a couple of days ago. I asked a question here. So I saw these changes. I asked a question. Has this been tested so that we know if she kicks out enough damage to actually hit through a decently geared stone skin champ? This is irrelevant if, like, I don't know, you do a double hit and it still leaves, you know, a quarter of the stone skin shield, because she's your damage. If she can't get through it, you can't bring another 1 or 2 champs to get through it, right? So this is only useful as a change if they've given her enough oomph, or if she's got enough oomph to actually beat down, you know, let's say you've got a Candrafon, for example. He's in stone skin. If she's not blowing up a Candrafon in stone skin, like if she's not blowing up a Nuka that's wearing stone skin, this is completely useless. If she is, then she's got some merit to being back in that kind of like PvP meta. Oh, I don't know. Like, so it feels like she's hard nerfed for Hydra. Hydra's getting stronger in a number of ways. The best ways currently to kill it are getting pretty much hard nerfed. And people will have to go back to the drawing board in terms of what teams to build. There'll still be crazy teams. Like Taras does crazy damage. They've not spoken about... they do actually. In the Q&A, they speak about Yumiko, no change. So we will just see a different rise from, you know, the Krakens in terms of which champions do the work. Teox is up there with the kind of like crazy damage dealing teams. Harima's in the mix on some of those. Like, so this is one way, but it was, for me, this one was always way too busted.
Third skill now places consistent HP burn debuffs, and both hits from this skill deal 50% more damage to enemies under a stone skin shield. I love the way they show here. Another neat boost to her overall kit. And finally, her passive skill now increases Trunda's attack by 5% for each stun or HP burn debuff she places on enemies. Her speed will still be increased as well, both by stun and HP burn debuffs. All in all, Trundle isn't going anywhere. We still expect her to be an excellent choice for Hydra battles and the arena. We tested a ton of early, mid, and late game champion rosters and team compositions when making these changes. Our results showed things will get better. You'll still be able to earn Hydra chests and milestone rewards in Hydra Clash. And you'll spend less time fighting the Hydra each week. As always, we'll be keeping an eye on your feedback and monitoring game data to see how these changes affect Hydra battles overall.
So we were told, actually, what they did is they took clones of some of the accounts that had like high-level teams. I don't know if it was specifically Scratch's team, but Scratch was mentioned in the dev sync thing we did to see what sort of damage she was doing before and after in those teams that were already doing like insane damage. And basically the feedback was she's still going to be really strong, but obviously not doing billions and billions of damage. I do wonder though, like, you kind of create a problem, a bit like what happened with Cadaver. I'm not against nerfs, by the way. I'm not. I know loads of people are totally against nerfs. I'm not one of those people that thinks that broken stuff should stay broken. But, you know, if you're going to nerf Cadaver or you're going to nerf Wixwell or Yannica, you know, you kind of need to look at the balance generally, because I would give it a week before new crazy teams come out with Taurus, you know, with some of the other OPs, and I'll be interested to see what sort of level of damage they do. They shouldn't be doing Trunda level damage, which I think is an improvement overall to like Hydra Clash specifically, but it's going to piss people off because they've obviously invested time, resources. You know, I was using my saved, and it's hard to get this stuff, saved dust in the merchant to upgrade the soul of my Trunda, for example, right? And it's bloody expensive. It takes so long to get enough. I've used it for her, and yeah, feels like, damn, that sucks now. That really sucks. And that's just a resource. People obviously have gone in for big shard events. People will be pissed at that. People use their books. People will be pissed at that. So same sort of thing with Wixwell and that, you know, I get that people will be pissed off.
We hope this preview has been useful for you and will help you prepare for more battles against the Hydra. Don't forget to like the video.
Okay, so let's just go into the Q&A stuff quick then. I don't know if there's much else that I didn't already call out, so I'm just going to go through the points and see. What took you so long? Well, basically they're saying it was a complicated decision and they had a bunch of testing to do. Is Trunda dead? We've just seen she's not dead. For Hydra, for the average player, she's still very strong. She's nowhere near as strong as she was. Why did we do shields? The point here is, I think we all agreed, I don't know if we did, but that infinite shields are pretty abusive and destructive for the game. Therefore, we decided to cap shields. As long as Wixwell teams still work for Clan Boss after this, I think they've come up with a reasonable solution. The Yannica thing, we didn't have to invest much in Yannica anyway, so, but it still sucks that people, for me, it sucks more that the taunt thing's gone, so Emic's basically not useless, but way worse. Wixwell, Yannica, Emic type of combos were a lot worse. The Packmaster, you know, people did that fusion. They were hoping for a good dog. That didn't happen, but he still has had a use with this kind of like, you know, these other mechanics. That's kind of gone. So I think that's going to piss people off. They say here Clan Boss shouldn't be affected. They say here Yumiko, like, why haven't you changed Yumiko? And I tell you now, we will get double Yumiko teams with Taurus. Like, they're not changing Yumiko because they don't think she's really the culprit of the issue. I think they're wrong. Actually, I think she's going to be... The problem with Yumiko is not her kits. It's that she can reset herself. And this should not reset herself. Kaimar, for example, does not reset himself. He resets all the other champions except himself. If they just stopped her being able to reduce the cooldown of her own abilities, I think Yumiko's fine. But they've left her as she is for now. Can I say goodbye to running Hydra on auto? No, because we've improved the AI. Will Hydra heads still be able to receive buffs and debuffs under Serpent's will? Yes. Okay, I think that's always been the case. That's it. Okay, that's it. So, oh, I don't know. I know people are going to be pissed. Let me know what you think down below. Is there anything in there particularly that you're like, that just should not have happened that way round? I do think the long-term health of Hydra Clash specific, not so much Hydra like, I just want to get my personal rewards. I think the health of Hydra Clash as a PvP mode just improved. But there's so many broken mechanics in the game now with all this power creep. I don't know how long it's going to be before we just get... I think the same people still sit on top because they've got like the +4 Taruses and the +4 Mythicals and that type of stuff. So ultimately, it might be a slower, a smaller gap, but I don't know if it's going to change the gap. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, there you go, guys. I've been Hell Hades. I'll see you soon.